Hello students, today we are going to discuss caste and India's constitutional provisions. This unit will enable the students to understand the meaning of caste system in India and the various constitutional provisions safeguarding the rights of the scheduled caste. To begin with, the post-colonial governance in India has been long held as a success story. The world's largest democracy, whose citizens enjoy freedom of speech and expression and religious tolerance. It has seemed to have escaped the fate of many post-colonial countries that have sucked into the swath of military dictatorship. It has thrived as one of the largest democracies in the world. However, many argues that the promise of freedom and liberation has been fulfilled at the expense of marginalization of many who were supposed to have shared in the fruits of liberty. The founding members of the Constitution has rejected exclusionary policy based on divisiveness and parochialism in favor of an inclusive society, where every citizen would enjoy absolute equality before law. However, the reality portrays a slightly different picture. Despite such commitment to equality, in the new nation state, what we have come to witness is that there is a hegemonic paternalism of the dominant religious or caste group, which demarcated its practice and tradition as distinct from the vast swath of marginalized people whom it has sworn to democratize. This resulted in the growth of communitarian feelings within each group and sectarian identities who felt alienated from each other. Political development in India have therefore witnessed conflict and tension between the majority communities and the lower caste in many parts of the country, thus rendering the question of the protection of scheduled caste and their rights central to the political discourse of India. The Constitution of India affords affirmative action for necessarily providing protection against discrimination and for the upliftment and welfare of the scheduled caste. Simultaneously, it impresses negative injunctions on every form of discrimination. Nevertheless, the legal and the constitutional provisions have been abused by the political establishment for its own gains. The provisions meant for better protection of the scheduled caste has been used by many as a counter-argument that they are also citizens of the country and hence they should be treated equally like every other citizen in order to accommodate them with the vast majority of the people. Therefore, the various provisions given in the Constitution will have to be explored in order to understand how these rights have been engaged in resolving the difficult question of the problem pertaining to the protection of the rights of the scheduled caste. Now we come to exploring the meaning of caste in India. A caste system is a form of social stratification in which the castes are hierarchically organized and separated from each other by rules of ritual purity. The lowest strata of the caste systems are excluded from the performance of ritualistic rites which confers religious purity in the hierarchical system. Each caste is ritually purer than the one below it. The caste system is an illustration of the social closure in which access to wealth and power is closed to social groups, which are excluded from the performance of purifying rituals. This ritualistic segmentation is further reinforced by rules of endogamy. The Hindu caste system is organized in terms of 4 groups or clusters: the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas and the Sudras. There is, however, much diversity at the local village level, where the major castes are further subdivided into smaller groupings of subcaste which are called jati. E.A.H. Blunt defines caste as an endogamous or a collection of endogamous groups bearing a common name, membership of which is hereditary, imposing on the members certain restrictions in matters of social intercourse, either following a common tradition, occupation, or claiming a common origin, and generally regarded as forming a single homogeneous community. According to McIver, when status is wholly predetermined so that men are born in their lot without any hope of changing it, then caste takes the extreme form of caste. The system of caste is said to have originated in India, though the exact time of origin of the system cannot be traced. The records of the Indo-Aryan culture contains its first mention. Caste in Indian society refers to a social group in which association is largely determined by birth. The caste system became fixed and hereditary with the rise of Hinduism. The laws of Manu in Manu Smriti refers to the impurity and servility of the outcast, while affirming the dominance and the total purity of the upper caste. Those of the lowest caste are informed that their place in the caste hierarchy is due to the sins committed by them in their past lives. Various punishments of torture and death are designed for crimes like getting literacy and insulting a member of the dominant class. Manusmriti, the most valued and reliable text of Hindu religion, legitimizes social exclusion and introduces absolute inequality as the guiding rule of social affairs in India. With this, the stratification of the Indian society into dominant and subordinate caste groups has become complete. The relationship of dominant and subordinate, which characterizes a majority versus a minority, stems not from the numerical superiority, but from different control over the economic, political, and ideological mechanisms of social stratification. Therefore, it is a condition where a dominant social subgroup prevents or checks a lower ranking subgroup from achieving equivalent status in the society. Such formulation, however, does not explain the distinction between minorities and majorities from a host of other subgroups, which also presents a relation of domination and subservience vis-a-vis each other. In order to address this problem, minorities are often said to be characterized by special cultural and physical features. Louis Rith has defined a minority as a group of people who, because of their physical and cultural features, are singled out from others in the society in which they live for differential or unequal treatment, and who therefore considers themselves as object of collective discrimination. Therefore, minorities are subgroups within a culture which are distinct from the dominant culture by reasons of differences in physiology, language, customs, and traditions. Such subgroups are regarded as inherently different and not belonging to the dominant groups, and for this reason, they are deliberately and unintentionally discriminated against. Hence, it is primarily about understanding the relationship between different groups present in the varied equation to each other in differing location, and how these groups stand in their relationship with the state and the institution of democracy. The hierarchical system has dominated Indian society for over 3,000 years and was developed by the Brahmins to maintain their superiority over the less educated and less skilled people. Over time, the caste system was formalized into 4 distinct varnas or classes. At the top of the hierarchy is the Brahmins, who are considered as arbiters in matters of learning, teaching, and religion. Next in the line are the Kshatriyas, who are the warriors and administrators. The third category, the Vaishyas, who belong to the artisanal commercial class. Finally, the Sudras, or the backward classes, are farmers and peasants. Beneath the four castes, there is a fifth group, which is not included as part of the Indian caste system. Individuals from these groups are untouchable or socially excluded groups who describe themselves as Dalit. Government of India officially calls them the scheduled caste. Indeed, this was based on the British government notification whereby the Simon Commission drew up an official list of socially excluded people and tribes in 1930 called the scheduled caste SC and the scheduled tribes ST. Scheduled means they are on a government schedule that entitles them to certain rights and provisions and affirmative actions. There is approximately 170 million Dalits out of India's total population. The report prepared by the Advisory Committee on Minorities submitted to the Constituent Assembly on August 1947 identified 7 minority communities in India: the Anglo-Indian, Parsis, the plain tribesmen in Assam, Indian Christians, Sikhs, Muslims, and the scheduled caste. K.M. Munshi, however, proposed an amendment to the report. First, to delete scheduled caste from the list of the minorities. Secondly, the section to Hindu community referred to as scheduled caste as defined in the Government of India Act 1935 shall have the same rights and benefits which are herewith provided for minorities specified in the scheduled in para 1. This amendment had far-reaching impact on the religious aspect of these communities. According to Munshi himself, any safeguard as a minority, so far as the scheduled caste are concerned, will possibly prevent their complete absorption in the Hindu fold. This was mentioned in the constitutional debate in 1947. The Indian society incorporates a bewildering number of identities based on religion, class, caste, or region. The presence of such diverse population has necessitated the adoption of policies aimed at safeguarding the concerns of all the people living within the territory of India. The Indian Constitution is a liberal document that makes the protection of the interest of scheduled caste one of the important objectives. The Indian state not only recognizes differences but guarantees equal citizenship and equal rights to all its citizens. The state policies toward different communities are guided by equal respect, fairness, and non-discrimination. But then the problem is, Indians have aced against each other with cultural prejudice. In India, cultural prejudice runs high, both at individual level and group level. The Indian variety of state socialism, nor the post-1991 free market economy, has been able to rid the Indians of cultural prejudice. In fact, revolution in modern means of communication and the persistent process of globalization has strengthened cultural prejudice by commercializing and popularizing elements of dominant culture at the expense of our cultures, of other cultures. The Indian state has been unable, or rather unwilling, to stall this cultural downslide. In such a situation, people with culture distinct from the dominant culture are finding it difficult to conserve their cultures in the face of the cultural onslaught of the dominant group. Now we come to the constitutional provisions that are put in place for the protection of the scheduled caste. The caste-based discrimination and oppression have been a malicious feature of Indian society, and in the post-independent period, its overlapping with politics have made it only worse. Oppressed class groups, in order to be accorded some rights and political freedom and recognitions, they were given certain constitutional provisions for safeguarding their culture, religious rights, and their position within the society. In fact, Dipankar Gupta has sadly exposed the contradiction when he elaborates the differences between Ambedkar and the Mandal Commission's views on caste. While the former, he believes, is designed as a policy of reservation or protective discrimination to remove untouchability as an institution from Indian society or social life and polity, the latter considers caste as an important political capital. The Mandal Commissions highlighted the consciousness of the Dalits by recognizing their advantage of caste identity as an important political resource. This resulted in the instigation of conflict between the backward classes and the upper caste who by virtue of their predominant position in the society was already occupying positions of strength in the political and economic system. The Indian Constitution provides for the protection and safeguard of the backward classes in the field of social, economic, political, educational, cultural and services under the state for the development of the people belonging to these communities. Article 366, Clause 24 and Article 341 of the Constitution provides for provisions for the identification of scheduled caste and how these castes are scheduled. Article 341 states that the President may, with respect to any state or union territory, and where it is a state, after consultation with the governor thereof by public notification, specify the caste, races or tribes or parts of groups within caste, races or tribes which shall for the purpose of this Constitution be deemed to be scheduled caste in relation to the state or union territory as the case may be. The Parliament may by law include or exclude from the list of scheduled caste specified in the notification issued under Clause 1 any state, race, any caste, race or tribe or part of the groups within any caste, race or tribe, but serve as aforesaid, a notification issued under the said clause shall not be varied by any subsequent notification. Article 366, Clause 24 state that scheduled caste means such caste, races or tribes or parts or groups within such caste, races or tribes are deemed under Article 341 to be the scheduled caste for the purpose of this Constitution. Now we come to the various provisions provided by this Constitution for safeguarding their rights. The social safeguard provided by the Constitution are Article 17, abolition of untouchability. Untouchability is abolished and its practice in any form is forbidden under the Constitution. The enforcement of any disability arising out of untouchability shall be an offence punishable in accordance to law. Article 25, freedom of conscience and free profession and propagation of religion. Subject to public order, morality and health, and to other provisions of this part, all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right to freely profess, practice and propagate religion. Article 25(2)(b) provides for the throwing open of Hindu religious institutions to public character to all classes and sections of Hindus. Now we come to the educational, economic and public employment safeguards. Article 15, prohibition of discrimination on grounds of race, caste, sex or place of birth. The state shall not discriminate against any citizens on ground only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them. No citizen shall, on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth or any of them be subject to any disability, liability, restriction or condition with regards to access to shop, public restaurants, hotels and places of public entertainment. The use of wells, tanks, bathing wells, roads and places of public resort maintained wholly or partly out of state funds or dedicated to the use of general public. Article 16, the equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. There shall be equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters to employment or appointment in any office under the state. No citizen shall, on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth, residence or any of them, be ineligible for or discriminated against in respect of any employment to office under the state. Nothing in this article shall prevent Parliament from making any law prescribing in regards to a class or classes of employment or appointment to an office under the government or any local or other authority within a state or union territory, any requirement as to residence within the state or union territory prior to such employment or appointment. The directive principles of the state policy, Article 46, provides for the promotion of education and economic interest of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and other weaker sections. The state shall promote with special care the educational and economic interest of the weaker section of the people and in particular of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and shall protect them from social injustice and from other forms of exploitation. Article 335 provides for claims of scheduled caste and tribes to services and post. The claim of the members of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes shall be taken into consideration consistently with the maintenance of efficiency of administration in the making of appointment to services and post in connection with the affairs of the union or the state. It provides that nothing in this article shall prevent in making any of the provisions in favor of the members of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes for relaxation in qualifying marks in any examination or lowering the standards of evaluation for reservation in matters of promotion of any class or classes of service or post in connection with the affairs of the union or the state. Now we come to the political safeguards. Article 330, reservation of seats for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the houses of the people. Seats shall be reserved in the house of the people for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, except the scheduled tribes in the autonomous district of Assam and the scheduled tribes in the autonomous district of other hill areas. The number of seats reserved in any of the state or union territory for the scheduled caste or the scheduled tribes under clause 1 shall bear as nearly as may be the same proportion to the total number of seats allotted to the state or union territory in the house of the people as the population of the scheduled caste in the state or union territory or of the scheduled tribe in the state or the union territory or part of the state or union territory as the case may be, in respect of which seats are so reserved bears to the total population of the state or union territory. Article 332 provides for reservation of seats for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the legislative assemblies of the state. Article 243d provides for the reservation of seats in the panchayats. Article 243t provides for reservation of seats in the municipalities. Now we come to the safeguarding mechanisms. Agency for monitoring the safeguards or the safeguarding provisions pertaining to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Article 338 provides for National Commission for the Scheduled Caste, which has the duty to investigate and monitor all matters relating to the safeguarding provisions of the Scheduled Caste under the Constitution, and to inquire into the specific complaints with respect to the deprivation of rights and safeguards of the Scheduled Caste. It also participates and advises on the planning process of socio-economic development of the Scheduled Caste, and to evaluate the progress of their development under the Union or any state. With this, we come to the conclusion of our discussion. It is important to reiterate and emphasize that unless provisions of the Constitution are enforced in their true letter and spirit, the utmost dispatch and earnestness, the dream and ideal casteless society will only remain a dream or a mirage. The marginalization of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities in enduring exclusion and is based almost entirely on caste identities. It is to address problems of the segmented society. The express provisions of the Constitution, which give effect to the idea of fraternity mentioned in the preamble, have been framed. These underline the social, rather collective resolve of ensuring that all humans are treated as humans and their innate genius is allowed outlet through equal opportunities. The various articles of the Constitution providing rights to the scheduled caste clearly and firmly sums up towards an inclusive Indian society. These provisions needs to be followed in their true spirit so that they can be interwoven into an inherently unit to follow and create an Indian society on the basis of unity, harmony and integration. Thank you.